Nap time. Let's talk about it. Let me close these blinds all the way first. So, nap time. A very coveted time by us parents. But eventually, the day comes when they just don't need to nap anymore. When is that going to happen? Who knows? It's different for every kid, and it's so hard to tell sometimes if they're ready to ditch their nap, because really, it could be anywhere from a year and a half to like 4 years old when they're ready to get rid of their nap. So, a couple signs you have to watch for. 3 things that will tell you that your child is ready, your toddler is ready to not nap anymore. Number 1, if you're thinking your kid is probably ready to lose the nap, your intuition is most likely right. Even if it's on a subconscious level, you're seeing things, you're hearing things, your mind is telling you that the time is coming to when the nap may no longer exist. And before we get any further, let me just say, there's something that you can do to prolong keeping the nap, and that is bedtime ends up being a little bit later. Because number 2 that tells you that your child is ready to lose the nap is it's taking them a long time to go to bed at night, or to fall asleep when they are put to bed at night, should I say. So my little girl is currently she's over 2.5. Geez, what month is it? Count back from November. What are we in now? It's supposed to be August, September, October, November. So she's 2 years and 9 months old. And it's been almost a month now that it's been almost a month that I haven't been putting her down for a nap. She still does fall asleep sometimes, but that's totally different than being put down for a nap at a specific time every day. So we fall into number 2. I started noticing that it was taking her a really long time to fall asleep at night. And I mean like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Now, just to be straight here, it would typically take her 45 minutes to an hour to put herself to sleep. Ever since she was about a year and a half old, her bedtime has been 7 o'clock since she was 6 months old. But ever since she was about a year and a half, I really noticed that it would take her a good 30 to sometimes almost 60 minutes to actually settle. Now, she's not out of bed, she's not dancing around, she's not causing a ruckus. We are very blessed in that aspect. She stays in bed. I would just notice her adjusting a lot, or maybe rearranging her stuffed animals. She's not playing with them, she's not making any noise, she's not crying. She just takes that as her downtime to just wind down before she falls asleep. Rewind to a couple of months back. I noticed that 2 things changed, which brings us to point number 3 is your child will tell you, I don't need a nap. Sometimes it's just that, plain and simple. Not always, because I take it that most kids don't agreeably go to sleep. In the case of my daughter, she did. When we started out, once she was vocal and knew what she was talking about, so, at like a year and a half old, she would come up onto your lap and say, oh, I'm getting sleepy, and yawn, and you'd say, okay, let's go for a nap. And she would agreeably go upstairs. I'd lay her down, she'd go to sleep. Now, my daughter was sleep trained at 6 months old. Link a playlist of sleep training videos that I have. So it was that simple. She would tell me she was sleepy, put her to bed, she'd lay down for a nap. And, at this point, she only had 1 nap a day, and it was about 2 hours, give or take a half an hour. Then, just after she turned 2, or right around the time that she turned 2, and right around the time that my son was born, instead of coming up to you and saying, I'm sleepy, she would get sleepy and she'd look at you and say, it's not nap time. And that was the trigger that we knew it was nap time. So then, I'd bring her upstairs, and she would be crying a little bit, but purely because she was tired, I'm sure. And I'd lay her down and she'd go to sleep. We had our odd day where maybe she didn't nap. If I had noticed her in the monitor 45 minutes to an hour later at nap time, and she's still awake and she's starting to, bounce around in her bed a little bit or feed her up on the wall, then I would just go get her and we wouldn't nap that day. Or she'd pass out a little bit later. Anyways, then her vocabulary changed about 3 or 4 months ago. Sorry, my mind's a little blurry. Once that second baby comes home, the lines blur. But it was a few months ago and her vocabulary changed from "it's not nap time" to "I don't need a nap." And I didn't notice it right away until I noticed at bedtime how long it was taking her to fall asleep. It was definitely an hour and a half to a 2-hour window. And hello, mom guilt. So I started the conversation with my husband that I think this means that her nap time is going to disappear really soon, because right now it's agreeable. She started to get a little more vocal. She would play a little more with her stuffed animals. You would hear her singing more. She'd just let out random loud noises and then eventually go to sleep. So it's still agreeable for now, but it was only going to get worse from there. So we started talking about, losing the nap and what that meant. And we had two choices. We could either keep the nap or we could let her stay up later. Now, I have a son who is 7 months old and he goes to bed at 6:30. I need my evenings. We get up pretty early, so I'm in bed pretty early. I wanted the time in the evening, and I just didn't want her staying up late, because to me, in the bigger picture of things, that's just something I'm going to have to change in another year and a half when she goes to school. So I'd rather just keep the bedtime the same, have our evenings so we have a couple of hours together, because realistically after the kids go to bed, it's like dishes, tidy up, any other chores you want to do, have a shower, and boom, half an hour later it's your bedtime too. So a lot of great free time that is. But I wanted the bedtime. I want them both in bed as close as possible for as long as I could possibly have, quite frankly. So we chose to get rid of the nap. Some people may choose to nap every other day. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that, but if that works for you, great. I want her system to regulate, so I want it the same every single day, so her body gets used to not having a nap. So right now we're at that in-between stage where there will be days where she does fall asleep. These so far have only been days where something different happens. So we go out and we're somewhere else. She gets very sleepy and she'll usually sleep on the car ride home, which is totally fine. Or if we have visitors come over for us, she's just more active. It's more excitement that makes her, she's really susceptible to falling apart after about 4 o'clock in the afternoon until bedtime, if that happens. Or if we are away somewhere for a few days, anything out of the norm that happens with people coming and going or us coming and going, that proves to be a bit too much for her, where she needs a nap, which is totally fine. This is where I let her fall asleep on the couch or she falls asleep in the car. Now, when she does this, falling asleep on the couch or whatnot, it all depends on what time she falls asleep at. If she's passing out at 2, I will wake her up at 3. And by waking her up, I mean I just stop being quiet and I just make normal house noises that would naturally kind of wake her up. If she passes out at 3 o'clock, then I only let her nap for a half an hour. Sometimes that's what she needs. Sometimes it makes her miserable, but you're rolling the dice. A couple things I've noticed with her attitude changing since the not napping. There's 3 different types. There's either the meltdown, which I'm just very empathetic to her because I understand she is internally trying to regulate herself to not napping. It's a big change. So I'm very empathetic to it. And change of scenery. Take her outside, take her on a walk, take her in the basement, take her upstairs, take her somewhere else to play. Sometimes I just let her watch an extra show. Totally snaps her out of it. Or we get, she's wired and she's just bouncing all over the place. She doesn't listen, there's no focus, and you really have to have a lot of patience. You need a lot of patience with any of these scenarios, quite frankly, but it really requires a lot of patience to just kind of slow her down, bring her down a notch, look her in the eyes, be face to face, repeat yourself a million times like you do anyways, because that's like 75% of being a mom. and just kind of reel her back in. Or there's other times where she's just perfectly fine. And you know, as the days go on, we get more and more of those perfectly fine attitude kind of days. So, you know, you have to choose what's right for you. You can either go to napping every day, you can make a bedtime later, or you can just suck it up and ditch that nap. Bedtime's the same, a little bit earlier, if anything. And hopefully after some time, when they adjust, you have a happy kid again, you have happy parents, and life goes on, right? If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like these kinds of conversations and want to continue having them, then maybe consider subscribing. Thanks.